Thanks everyone for coming. This is, I guess, an extra special thanks. This is probably going to be our last meetup for the year. I don't think we're going to try and jam something into the holiday schedule. So I want to appreciate just a big thanks from all the organizers for all you guys that have shown up over the course of the year. I think we've had our best year so far in terms of getting sessions in. We're super excited this week. These guys flew in all the way from Atlanta to come present on their accelerator product. A couple quick housekeeping notes. I'd like to thank Extendium for the food tonight. They sponsored the food. Definitely thank Hanson Dodge for letting us host here again, and then Active Commerce is keeping your whistle wet and making sure you don't go thirsty. We'll probably start these back up again in January. I think we're loosely targeting doing a session on Speak in the January timeframe. And with that, I'll turn it over to the folks from BrainJocks. They will be going over their SCORE product. Pretty cool. I saw an early version of this when they launched it. I'm excited to just kind of see where they're at. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great. Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me? Yeah! That's enthusiasm! Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay. All right, let's introduce ourselves. Okay, yes. My name is Brian Beckham. I am the Chief Technology Officer at BrainJocks and one of the founders.
So this is the guy. And I'm Pavel Veller. I'm Director of Research and Development at BrainJocks. So that's me. Now we have a big announcement.
A huge announcement. So before we get started on the demo, what we're going to do today is we're going to do a live demo. We want it to be really conversational. Hopefully you guys will ask a lot of questions and be interactive. But before we get into this, huge announcement right here yesterday. This was on the front page of MSN. Beckham named people's sexiest man alive. I feel pretty good about it. I didn't even apply. I don't know how it happened. Okay. I told this to my kid yesterday. Yeah, right. I told my kid. I said, "Dude, look, you're the sexiest man alive. You look it."
Awesome. Now, can you guys tell me who have not heard of BrainJocks SCORE?
Never heard of it. Okay.
3. Awesome. Now, who works with Sitecore? Great.
Even better.
That's good. Now, so what we have is we built an accelerator platform. It has a lot in it, right? It's a component framework. It's a development accelerator. It's a solution archetype. There are many things in it. First, let's
give a little background to why we did it and what we did, right? So, what BrainJocks is. So, BrainJocks is a technology implementer, right? We are not an agency. We don't call ourselves an agency. We don't have a strong in-house creative staff. We do have some good in-house creative, but it's not the core of our business.
Well, they just put Brian's face on.
Yeah, exactly. Pavel did that. So.
No, I didn't. Ken did.
Did you really? Yes. Oh my God, you said that. That's terrible. So our Sitecore practice started in a little bit of an unusual way. We don't sell Sitecore licenses. We don't go out and market the product. What we do is we do a lot of rescue operations. Right, companies that are implementing or struggling with it, they asked us to come in and take a look at kind of help them through some friction. All right. So a number of years ago, we were working on some projects and some enterprise clients, and they posed us with some interesting challenges. They wanted to be able to do everything through page editor, and the first time everybody here does page editor, right? Strong page editor following in the room? No? Just a few? A lot of our clients demanded it. They wanted a visual editor, they wanted to have flexibility for their editors, etc. So implementing page editor created a lot of challenges. Right? If you haven't done it before, when you do it, you know that you'll have to know that it will. All right, create some different challenges. So over the next 4 years, we worked on and developed this framework, and we developed a practice where we really put page editors first in how we develop Sitecore. And then we wanted to learn how to expose it to make this process as repeatable as we possibly could. Fast forward to last October, Sitecore approached us and asked us to productize this and take it to Symposium. So we bear down, we invested, we built it, we delivered it at Symposium, and then for the past year, we've been marketing and selling the product.
So we launched at Symposium last year, right? We launched, it was 1.3 at the time, 1.4 got released in February next year, 1.5 about April. With that arrow support, now working on 2.0 with 8.1.
Yep.
So what we're going to show you today is a lot of what didn't want that 5 plus the new stuff from 2.0 that's coming, which it hasn't yet, is not yet available, but we can show you something.
Yeah. So a big change in our business model, as opposed to just being a service company and offering Sitecore as a development service, starting to sell our product to our competitors and to other partners and teaching them how to properly implement Sitecore, follow best practices, and make sure they can get the most out of Payjet. So the thing that we did is when we productized it, we didn't just wrap it up and put it up on the marketplace. We actually invested very heavily in the methodology. So let's talk a little bit about what SCORE is.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a little easier to show, right? So now, and I'll get back to all this material, guys, because they're all available for you. We'll get back here. Now, let me go into my Windows VM, and I'll start. We have 2 demo sites, and I'm going to use them interchangeably depending on what we're going to show you, like and what features. So we have a kind of old and new. Those of you who have seen SCORE and who have watched all the YouTube materials, you guys have seen this demo site, because this is the site we've used for all the videos we record. For those who went to the ShoeCon conference, right, you guys have seen us present, if you attended the accelerator session, present us this site. So both are built on Sitecore. It's Sitecore implementations. They are, this one is just a content site. There's no integrations, there's no search, they're just basically content components. This is more advanced. We have products, we have search, we have product details, product highlights. It's not a commerce site, it's a product catalog site. So we're going to use this too. Now, these are, I mean, anybody can build the front end. Like, it's not hard to build the front end, pixel perfect, whatever's been designed, not hard. It's a lot more difficult to build editing experience that matches that look and feel. So the actual demo is going to be happening here, which is the page editor for both sites. And probably the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to walk through some basic concepts. Now, who guys of you have not heard the term atomic design? Who have not heard? If you have heard, you know. If you don't, just let us know. So everybody knows what it is?
Does anybody know what it is?
No, because I see puzzle faces. Okay. What are you guys asking about?
Atomic
design. The Brad Frost thing. What's this framework?
Yeah, so the concept of atomic design is pretty simple. BrainJocks SCORE targets 2 different audiences. Okay, we'll talk about the components here in a minute. On the first side, we want to give the developers a very clear path of implementation, how to build sites, how to execute. For the editors, for the marketers, we want to give them a very good experience. It gives them a lot of flexibility in how they build and manage user experience. Okay. Atomic design is the model that we use to develop a component library. For the marketer, what we're doing is we're componentizing Sitecore. How many of you have heard of dynamic placeholder keys? Yes.
Some built modules. Some invented them.
Well, a long time ago, when we were working with some of our initial page editor implementations, we saw blog articles from people like Nick, and then took that concept and really just kind of tried to take it to its final state. Atomic design is a very simple premise. Instead of building visual experience elements that are complex, that adhere to a very specific look and feel or design, I don't want to do that, because if I do that, then it's only going to work for that one site. It's only going to work for that one user experience. And for that matter, if I deliver it for a site, it's only going to work for the initial state of the website. We're using CMS. So the point is they should be able to build new content. They should be able to add new user experiences as they go along, and they can't always predict what it is that they want to do. They don't want to have a dependency back on the IT staff to constantly introduce new visual components as they go along. So instead of doing that, I want to be able to build things out of reusable building blocks. So the component architecture, the stand that we took was, let's use atomic design as a premise for building a component architecture.
Well, we actually built it before the term came about. We were not smart enough to call it this. So now we kind of showing that that's exactly the implementation of atomic design, but the atomic design happened parallel, but after. Now, and to illustrate what Brian just said, let me show you a couple of examples, which will be very basic component examples. You guys know the carousel, the highlights, the tassels, the accordions. Everybody deals with them every day. So let's look at the carousel as an example. Now I'm going to use, let me use this one that has a little more juice to it, right? Let me just make sure that I'm logged into this site. When you look at the carousel on this front page of this site, let me go just to show you the published one. It has this whatever 3-panel carousel, right? Now, if you take a closer look, what you guys will see that the panels themselves individually are all a little differently arranged. The content on the panel does not follow the same structure. This panel has something in here with whatever is a highlight, I believe. This had a 3-column structure with individual components in them, and the first one was just content with a simple call to action. They're all different. Now, when you take a look at the editing experience for the carousel, which you will once you log in, you'll see that the carousel is not a single component, right? It's built of smaller building blocks, things like Lego blocks, right? The carousel really is a container for carousel panels. So if I want to see this, this is the carousel container, and this is the panel number 1. If I scroll down, panel number 2, and scroll down, there's going to be panel number 3. So we clearly flatten out the carousel, stop the rotation so you can access the content in each one, which makes it editable, right? And if I want to add more panels to this carousel, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the built-in Sitecore features. It's exactly your Sitecore as you know it. Add components to the carousel container, which will be nested within. Now, and my placeholder settings are smart enough to only allow me to use a panel. And if I use a panel, if you see there's only one, like there's not multiple styles of panels, there's just one panel. And the reason is, while the panel is a structure to build the carousel, the panel itself is also just a component with more stuff to be put into it. Now, let me get a data source, which we'll get back to this. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, at length. But the panel itself, when it comes down, will be empty, so that the authors who create the carousel can look at whatever they need to build based on designs, whatever the process is, and they can further define what goes onto a carousel.
So the panel itself becomes a canvas. Right, to build the inside, I can add structure to the canvas. I can lay it out. It can be responsive grid elements or components. And inside of that grid or inside of that structure, I can then begin to add content components like headers, text, videos, whatever.
True. So the nesting of the components becomes one of the kind of foundational features of the component architecture. That was kind of the basic that we had to lay down before we go and do anything else. Because if you can nest components, if you can work with nested structures, if you can take things out of here, this 2-column thing, and move it with whatever is in it, and move it up and put it, let's say, there, right? Things like this, if you can start doing this, you can build really flexible layouts. You don't have to templatize every single variation that the design tells you to do. You can build a design system instead, build individual components, or ideally, look at them and say, hey, that's my highlight, that's my this, that's my that. Let's build a platform with those components that have generic styling. Let's make sure we can style them individually to match your pixel-perfect design. And let's build those pages from the existing library.
There was a couple things that were really important in building SCORE. And one of them was that we did not want to fundamentally change Sitecore. If you look, we didn't fundamentally change even the page editor. You still use Sitecore's dialogues. Of course, we had to make some very subtle changes to it because when you do a component-based architecture, you're going to have a lot of components.
True.
And we also wanted to be able to use dynamic placeholders or technology like that to be able to nest those content because it is fundamental to how we work. But we also wanted to be able to take content out of those nested elements and move it around the page. We also wanted to be able to use Sitecore's replace a rendering feature.
Which that thing will allow us to change the shape of the page. Which what I'm going to do now will look like I'm changing a template. Because if you look at this page, let me go preview. You guys are going to see that the main content area on that page is using kind of a wide left and the thumbnail on the right, sidebar on the right. So this is the, we'll call it wide, what is it, Brian?
2-column wide left.
Exactly. So if I want to change that structure to be 3 columns because my contents change for that page for tomorrow calls for a different layout, the option I have right now is just to change that component to be something else. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go here, I'm going to change that to be a 3-column as I'm playing with whatever change I need to make. Let's make that a, when it comes up.
Sitecore is fast.
Yeah, it is really fast. Let's make it this one. So it's going to be a 3-column wide middle, which we'll talk about the column structure. So the content stayed, well, it kind of moved, it rearranged itself, which we'll talk in a second when I'll show you the advanced scenario. Let me just move elements a little and talk about some other things. So as we're rebuilding the page.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, so the first thing was making Sitecore work. So things like rendering compatibility, right? Replacement rendering features, moving nested content elements inside of different cells within the user experience, placeholder settings. All those technologies need to work with that system because we didn't want to fight Sitecore. We wanted to really embrace it. Now, the other thing that was really fundamentally important is that using the components that we build, you need to be able to achieve any kind of look and feel that you possibly can be approached with. I told you before that BrainJocks doesn't do a lot of internal design. We do some, but not a lot. It's definitely not a majority of the work. What we do is implementation. So we're very often given user experience from a Sitecore or from an agency. They have a design already going in, and they want to build it. Well, they don't want that build to cost a bajillion dollars because I have to introduce custom components to match that exact look and feel.
And while we'll talk about the styling of the components, what I just did, guys, if you watch the screen and not Brian talking, the screen was more interesting. I've applied what we call a styling variance. So all the components we built and all the components you can build with SCORE extending from our whatever, which we can again talk the templates and the random parameters templates, they have what we call styling variance. So what I did, I can repeat it, right? The edit component properties have this menu style. And you'll see them on the highlight style, the handle style, this style, that style. These styles are not built into the framework. As an implementation team, you can build your own set of styles for that component that are tenant specific. If I have, and I do have multiple sites running on the same instance, they're all using SCORE, but they're going to have their own set of styling variances for those components, which really translate to a CSS class. You're making a selection. You can make them editor-friendly by giving them good names, like this, whatever blue border, green border that we've made for examples. They eventually translate to a class name that a CSS developer can target to make them arrange themselves differently. So when I moved the menu from the main area into the sidebar, it didn't look right being horizontal. I wanted it to be vertical. I just applied the styling variance, and the component changed the look and feel. It's still the same component. Now, going back to the component transformation, I want to talk about some advanced things. So when we changed the 2 column into 3, we can actually go back.
Yeah, this is the going from 2 to 3 was easy, right? Because I had 2 columns, I got a 3 column. I'm going to have an empty column that I would fill up with some content. But going from 3 to 2 actually creates a problem. What's the problem? Where does that 3rd column actually go? That's exactly right. So what we did is we created a feature in SCORE called rendering transformations.
Yeah, so you see, like, we didn't lose it, right? It kind of went somewhere. It went into the remaining sidebar. The sidebar from the left moved into the sidebar on the right. Now, that didn't happen magically. We don't want things to happen magically. Like, as developers, I don't know how you guys, I don't like things to happen magically. I want to know what they do. So we have a business rules-driven system for that transformation, and you can write your own. You can extend or customize the ones we provide that kind of do some defaults. And let me show you how that thing worked. In here, we have some default random transformation rules. And that was a structural 3 column to 2 column. So it's probably going to be this one. And if I go find the rule, and let me zoom in on it. So we did the 3 column wide middle to 2 column, right? We did this one. It's one of the main in this list. What we'll kind of do like simple things, really. We just transform the placeholder keys. Whatever center will become left, right? And that thing's just moved out into the left. It's really easy to understand as a developer what it does.
Yeah, when you read the rule, it makes it very simple. Moving the content from one place or the next is actually going to cause it to move, transform as a part of the transformation. So these transformations allow you to add additional steps to Sitecore's existing feature. And because we use the rules engine, if you can think of some other transformations yourself, and you can create actions and conditions that plug into that and extend that feature even more. The thing about Sitecore is that developers love to work with it because it is so extensible. It's a great puzzle. It's a great tool in a lot of ways. And we wanted to make sure that we preserve that we enhance that, and we continue that.
And you guys may think that why would I need to play with the page length? Why would I need to change it from 3 to 2 to 5 to 4? Like, it's kind of silly examples, right? Now, let's talk about the build first approach, because it will make a lot more sense in that. And we can also talk about some component styling too. You guys, I believe, or I understand, all the developers, the .NET developers, right? There's either some UI or non-developers in the room, mostly developers, and you are
Bill.
Hey, Bill, can you tell us who you are? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I do content strategy, digital strategy, roadmaps for applications, so I'm constantly looking at what does the interface do, how does the customer experience it.
Oh, great. So the build first resume.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
can you talk about build first?
So the way that we always built Sitecore sites originally, even at BrainJocks, is that we would be given design and user experience from an agency, and then we would take that as a map, and then we would build a component library that would match that design and create it. And then they would never tell us how they wanted the editing experience to work, so we would have to kind of come up with a requirement for that, and we would go ahead and build it, and then they would tell us that we were wrong, and we'd do it again. And this process would repeat over and over again, right? Does this sound familiar to you guys? So what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of change that process to some degree. Instead of using a design-first approach, what we actually were able to do now is what we refer to as a build-first approach. Taking wireframes, some very basic artifacts, I can go ahead and take an out-of-the-box SCORE implementation and design the site by using the existing components, right, and then lay the CSS on top of it to actually implement design. So it allows teams to operate a lot faster. You're able to work in an agile way. Design doesn't have to be complete before you start a project. So it gives you a lot of advantages as a team.
And another example that I personally have used very recently on a project for transformations like this was not just when editing, but through personalization. So the compatible rendering that I showed you, when you can replace a 3-column with a 2-column, you can do that by inside a personalization action, right? You can vary your render from 3 to 2. We have some navigation that should vary by page, for example, right? And there's certain things should be hidden because they're not making sense on that page. You build as a 3-column, and you hide the left column, just completely take it away by transforming the 3 to 2. And you just keep it, we'll talk about the snippet, but you can build a single kind of navigation structure, and through personalization rules, transform your containers to be different based on whatever condition you need. And that will kind of have this technique that is not really, kind of fancy when you try and build the page right, but also helps you in runtime just to build it once and transform it upon whatever happens with whatever condition you need to apply to.
Yeah, again, making sure that whatever we do in SCORE works in the different features of Sitecore. So being able to A/B test 2 different page layouts, or being able to use rendering transformations as part of a personalization condition should also work.
Now let me take a step into Visual Studio, talk about styling. Because there's one important thing I want to make sure you guys understand and kind of take home with you, is that SCORE is not a site in the box. SCORE is a development framework. You can't have SCORE, let's say, get a module from us, which is a NuGet package, which we can show you and talk about too, deploy, build the site, launch the site, and be done. You can't. You take it and you build site with it. It helps you build the site, but it's a framework. And for that matter, all the styling, all the CSS, LAS or SAS, in this case it's a LAS example, we have SAS, it doesn't matter, but you do all that in your project. We scaffold you with like a starting point. We give you all the right places. You know where to go to keep customizing the styles, but styling specifically is part of the code base. We treat styles as code, okay? And it's specific to each site. SCORE doesn't come with any styling built in. Well, whatever default scaffold will do, which will be the default bootstrap mixins and things, they'll be your style. But other than that, there's no styling in it.
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
what I was going to say is, so that we can adapt to any look and feel, right? This is a big part of our requirement. So we couldn't do things like put Twitter Bootstrap markup into a responsive group, because as soon as we do that, then those components are fixed to a certain column layout, to a certain structure. So instead of doing that, we allow the CSS developers to fully control the grid layout by using things like mixins.
So if you look at this project, right, we were using these 3 columns, white middle, white left, whatever, right? We never said that it's an 8-4, 9-3, or 10-2 split in 12-column grid, because it doesn't matter. Component just gives you classes that you target with this specific styling. So for this site, the design called for 8 main area and 4 columns for the sidebar. More often I see 9 and 3 split. On my recent project we had 10 and 2. So you take that, you custom, and this is the scaffold. So you get you don't have to, but I don't see why you wouldn't. So SCORE comes with a solution template with a scaffolding script that just kind of scaffold. If you guys have worked with, well, Have you guys worked with Rails or anything along those lines? You do like Rails new and it gives you all the scaffolded kind of project structure. We have the same thing for Sitecore solutions, very simple. And then also with SCORE gives you some default style. But then you go in and you customize the grid structure, you customize how your specific components look like, you add more component-specific styling if you need to, you hook them up with whatever main list for compilation or main SAS, if that's a SAS-based solution, which we support both. And there we go. So you have full control over that.
Yeah, and the way that the things that happen in design to a grid are things like, hey, when it collapses down to mobile, I need this content to float up and this to do whatever. So you need to be able to have control over things like pushes and pulls of columns. You need to be able to restructure them. If a design comes to you and it's not a 12-column grid, you need to be able to adjust the components to a 16-column grid, but you don't want to change components. So you should be able to do all of that through CSS, and that's something that took us a long time to understand. It was something that evolved over that time.
Now, and it's all, of course, responsive through the Bootstrap Foundation. We'll talk about the UI layers of SCORE, right? This is all Bootstrap-based. We have not yet publicly available, but it's being finished Foundation-based UI. So it's all responsive, but then how do you control what it actually does beyond the basic grid responsiveness? There's something we built for every component that helps you define whether they show or hide on device, like whatever device definitions that, in this case, Bootstrap, I believe, supports, right? So if I go and look at this one, you'll see that in my component properties. But also, because you have full control over CSS, LAS, SAS, whatever you guys use, again, you see these guys here, they will let you hide things based on device size, right? But then you go into your style when you build an implementation and it calls for a specific responsive behavior, and so find some in probably carousel or the carousel. So you'll find some specific media queries right in there. There's a great example. So I mean, that's nothing you guys just build it, right? Whatever you need to do different than just basic local out of the box responsive, you control it, right? You have full control over it. Yep. Where do we go next?
I guess another
questions, maybe?
Oh, questions. Yeah, are there any questions?
You guys are quiet.
Where do you buy it? Oh, that was a great question.
Blank checker.
We will take blank checks tonight only. Tonight only.
Now,
I guess the other thing I wanted to mention, and this is something that goes back to rendering transformations for a minute, and that's also wanted to highlight. This is a feature in Sitecore 8.1. Have you guys played with 8.1 at all? Anybody? Yeah. So 8.1 has built-in device detection personalization, right? Have you guys seen that piece? So rendering transformations, we talked about that they add additional steps to changing rendering compatibility or replacement rendering features out of Sitecore. When you start building components through atomic design, you start noticing that there's a lot of similarities between things that are like collections. And these are things like accordions and tab sets and carousels and list groups and things like that. So when a user takes the time to build out one of these kind of collections, these nested elements like this, and if they wanted to change that out from a tab set to an accordion, for example, we want to make that really simple for them, first and foremost, right? So remember that each one of these things are panels. So whatever they put on those panels, we can't tell, right? But what we don't want to do is we don't want to make them have a difficult editing experience. Now, if you would imagine when I'm building something like a tab set, inside of a tab set is a tab. There's some sort of a parent-child relationship that creates components, markup, styling, JavaScript, whatever, that allows it to behave like a tab set. But I need to be able to enforce placeholder keys so that only tabs can be inserted into a tab set. So what if I wanted to convert a tab set, for example, to an accordion?
Which you can imagine is happening not by me doing this, but again, run a personalization rule based on device being detected being mobile if you're doing some adaptive. And for this thing, you may do a mix of adaptive responsive. Let's convert this tab set to accordion on the server side. You can pick a compatible accordion, and then you can say select. And what's going to happen is, if you watch closely, and I'm going to do a preview. I'm going to save it to a preview. The tab set converted into an accordion. And right now, as far as the page goes, it's the real accordion. I can add accordion panels, not the tab panels. If I do what I just did with the tab and I look at what rendering I am allowed to insert into my container, it'll be not a tab panel, it'll be an accordion panel. Because the component transform right now for this time being, right? And if I go to preview, I'll see the accordion, not the tab set. So that transformation done on the fly, based on the device, will render back pull out the accordion.
So the transformation not only changes placeholder keys, but it can also rewrite nested components from one type to the other.
Right.
In order to maintain that compatibility. So through using Sitecore 8.1 or using, what is it, 51 degrees or something like that inside of the previous version, you can say if the user is using a mobile device, render this as an accordion. If they're using a desktop device, maybe I want it as a tab set.
And the content that you put on the original tabs, right, the content architecture stays, because the two components they're doing the same thing. They're a collection of tabs, either tab horizontally or tab vertically. Different JavaScript around it, different markup, granted, but other than that, it's the same collection structural. So why not keep it the same and allow it to transform itself based on whatever condition you based on?
I mean, their data source template is the same for a tab or a
Let me show the rule definition. Let me make sense.
Yeah,
It's going to be a lot easier for developers to read what it does.
that was a great question.
Yes. Well, let me see. It was the accordion to a tab set. Okay, so let me show you that, and then Brian will take the question. So let's read this on. Okay. So can you guys read the rule, what it says, right? It says, when the accordion is transformed into tab set, well, being changed is whatever, transformed. Then let's change the, in this case, this is the renderings. If you know the rendering, we change the rendering ID from one to the other one, right? And let's also rename the placeholders. Because what matters for those new renderings is how placeholders are named. Right?
So remember, and going back to your question, Nick,
Yeah.
remember that an accordion panel is actually a very simple thing. All it really is a canvas. So the only thing that it has to have is a type. So in this case, yes, they do have the same data source type. So the data source template for the panel itself is, but if I wanted to write an action that said convert the data source from type A to type B, then I could do that too. It'd be a little more elaborate there, right? Because I have to deal with field differences and how do I transform field types and things like that. But in this case, that situation we didn't have to deal with it.
What helps the panel to be the same, the panel has a name, and then it has a placeholder, right? The panel doesn't tell you what's on it. The panel says, I can accept whatever you want to insert into you based on placeholder settings. I know I gotta have a name. That's all I gotta have. Well, the tab set or accordion to then work with me as a child element. And that's what helps us to have the same data source then.
While we're talking about data source items, though, since that was a great question.
Yeah.
The other thing that we care about, as we said before, is that we want the components to be portable. Right? We want them to be reusable as we possibly can. So styling we talked about. Right? You have control over CSS. The components are very generic in nature. They're designed to be targeted. We have styling variances, so we feel like that we can style them for the most part to give you whatever experience you want. The other thing that's baked into renderings inside of Sitecore are things like data source locations.
Yep.
Now, if I have 5 sites that are sharing components, one site might have access to shared content. And maybe it's a group of sites that have shared content. The next site might not have access to multi-site shared content, but it might need site shared content. The next site might not have any shared content, only access content on a page level. Right. Okay? So rather than bake into the components some query or something, some pipeline processor that would kind of create folders, we decided to allow each site to determine where the components are allowed to store content. And what we did is we introduced another feature in the rules engine called component data source location rules. The way that these, I'm sorry.
No.
The way that these data source location rules is pretty simple for an editor, right? In this case, I have 3 folders, green, blue, and red. The green folder is page local content. The blue folder is site shared content, and the red folder is multi-site shared content. Now, I could easily have 5 places that I wanted to store with purple folders and whatever else, but for our demo site, this was enough to explain the concept. Now, the way that this works is actually very simple, and this is, once again, a feature that SCORE provides as a development framework that you can use when you build your own components.
Now, you guys know that they're starting with 7 to update something, they started supporting Sitecore. They started supporting pipe data source location.
And queries.
But that becomes tedious with typing into each rendering definition that you want to support page local, pipe, site shared, pipe, multi-site shared, plus keep it relative with queries and whatnot. So what we have built, let me show you how it looks on the rendering. Every component can say a very simple thing. Let me show you the Bootstrap UI. And let's just find something that has data source, like a lead, right? It has data source. Gotta have. So if you look at data source location expression for this guy, it says this. So the content all column is not something Sitecore would recognize, right? Sitecore has a query column, but this is something new. So think of it as a special namespace, right? That will be resolved runtime. And the way it will be resolved in runtime will be business rule driven, not surprisingly. So you can scope the rule to a specific site. Say, hey, this site will transform content at all into this section, or this set of folders.
So the component has the ability to say what type of content it's allowed to access. All means page local, site shared, multi-site shared, whatever is available to the tenant, it can use it. I could also have limited that to only page local, or only site shared, or only multi-site shared by using a different token. The other part of the equation, though, is the actual rules.
Yeah, and by doing this, they allow some other techniques for kind of balance and branch templates, which we'll talk next. Yeah, first. So can Brian explain this?
Yeah, so the rule, and the way that the rule reads is pretty simple, where it's a page within the site. And we'll talk about the standard values and the branch templates here in a minute. The action is to add a folder as a multi-site root folder for shared content. So it's not just that I can access multi-site shared content, I can have clusters or groups. The way that enterprise clients typically want to model their content tree, we can't predict it, we don't know. They might want to organize it in a way that makes sense to their business. Maybe they want to organize by branches or by regions or by departments or by country or whatever, we don't know. And they might want to share content to sites at different levels in the content tree hierarchy. So they need to be able to map as many folders that are necessary to group those sites together, and each tenant needs to be able to determine where that shared content lives.
We have an example with the BrainJocks. We built that site mimicking one of the client implementation that had a lot more elaborate content structure, and something is with my browser. And that business rule in the newer version supports not just the 3 locations, but you can do arbitrary, let's say you have regional content or brands of that section content, of that group of brands content. So you can do more than just 3 levels. Anyway, so that's important. Now, do you want to start talking about the advanced things? What do you think?
I was thinking about talking about page types next.
Yeah,
do that? Okay, so since we said that we also support things like standard values, let's talk about what that means for us. When you're building sites, you're going to come across pages that are templated at some point, right? But what we tell you is that we give you flexibility to build a page based on whatever structure that you want. Well, if they have to build 1,000 product pages, they don't want to have to build every single one of those things from scratch. So the question becomes, what do you do? Atomic design actually addresses this concept, and what they call it in atomic design is templating. And lucky enough, Sitecore actually has 2 different templating opportunities that we can use, standard values and branch templates. So one of the things that we did in SCORE, once again, because we are page editor first, is you can open standard values in the visual editor and use it. Now, if you stop for a second, you have to think about what that means. All of those things that you've seen, like styling variances, the class selections are somewhere else in the content tree. Templates for standard values, branch templates are somewhere else way down here in the content tree. Okay. The component data source locations, where that tenant site is able to store its content. Once again, there's no correlation in the folder tree. Sitecore kind of bifurcated the whole thing. So when we support visual editing, we had to make everything work correctly, which means that when you go into the visual editor in standard values, you still have to be able to access all of the shared content locations for the site, all the styling variances for the site, the responsive behaviors, all those things need to work, and it needs to be visual.
So it didn't work in one of the demo sites, I'm going to know. Yeah, it happens.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, good.
Do you think anybody saw that? This
Yeah.
is giant screen behind.
Giant yellow.
Oh, was it really?
It's okay though.
It made you look very unsexy.
Oh, that's unfortunate. There's a camera right there.
It happens, yeah, that's okay. So here's what Brian is talking about this. So I am right now editing a branch template, right? And my branch template lives outside of my site content area, right? The templates are right there. My content is up here. My site is scoped to live underneath this site root. Whatever component selection, for example, is scoped to that specific site. So I'm outside my site sandbox, editing the template that belongs to this site actually, right? When I'm on that branch template, if I want to modify my colors, for the background for this stripe. I really would like to see my brand selection colors that I defined for that site. But the template isn't within the scope of the site. So how do I do it, right? There are other templates that belong to other sites right there, right? So how do I segregate them? So what happened right now, you look at this set of colors, the set of colors, they belong to this site, and I can show you that's a selection of colors. I mean, you can trust me, guys. If I go to a different range template for a different site, it'll be a different set of colors. What we do, it's a different rules that we implement.
Yeah, so there is a pipeline in Sitecore that runs that you might be familiar with called get lookup source item. Right, so when you execute something like a query, we can actually modify where the query is executed from, as an example. Yeah. So as a part of our scaffolding process, we set it up so that the tenant templates are associated with the content tree. They know where each other are, and when something needs to find selections or component data source locations, whatever, it knows how to do that through execution or modification that executes in that pipeline.
So basically, we cheat, right?
We cheat.
But it works. We switched the query relative item to be in the content home page, right? So that everything else goes relative off the page, as if that template item lived inside the content tree. Dynamically through the rules, and you can scope these rules to a specific site.
And once again, try to keep Sitecore as native as we possibly can. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to really change where standard values lives, because that's going to work really well later. We don't do that, right? We let Sitecore do it the way it wants it to do it, and we just kind of very subtly say, okay, well, here's something that we want to happen when that happens. Now, the way that standard values works, when you use it in the visual editor and you edit the layout field, it still works. So if I put renderings into standard values, those pages will get that through virtue of what? These guys are dead.
Layout deltas.
Layout deltas, yes, layout deltas. So if I change that rendering in standard values, all of the pages that are using that standard values are going to change as well. So it gives me central control over some presentation characteristics of the page through the visual editor. But we can also support branch templates. When I need to have content that is created for each page that would be unique, not tied back to standard values, I need to be able to do that as well. And what we can do is we can actually combine those two techniques when we have to build these kind of pre-structured pages, but we want to maintain flexibility.
Well, so let me explain a little bit what Brian just said, right?
Oh,
so, yeah, I'll translate it for the audience. When you look at this components building with nesting and like little elements, little buttons, little tabs, and whatever, right? It may look tedious, because how will I let my editors to create every page from scratch, dropping the structural, dropping the this, dropping the that? It's going to take them 20 minutes to build a page. They won't be done in 5. Which with the templates, it's easier, right? They only have to fill in the content. What it can do with branch templates and standard values in combination, based on what you need to do with future changes. Build out a page like this. Let me show you this. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it 98. And that page will be laid out with the components as if it was templated out. But the components are all there flexible. So let me show you. This is a new page, right, I just created based on a template, which is a branch template. Now, and if I go to preview, it's ready to go. It's like lorem ipsum kind of template. I just need to provide my content as if it was exactly templated out, right? But at the same time, as an editor, I can still go and I have all the flexibility as if I just put it together with my components. I can go, for example, and say, you know what, for that specific page instance, based on this template, that section goes. Like, I don't need that section. Let me remove the entire thing, just get rid of it, right? Gone. I can look at this one, say, you know what, Stripe, this content, I need the 3rd column. Let me use the transformation that you guys have seen, transform the 3 columns. So you can quickly modify it a little bit based on whatever you're doing. But you get the templating, you just don't get it through developer. Hey, build me the template, deploy it tomorrow in production. Just build a template in branch templates, look right, you save, go build pages based on that. You don't need developers to do it.
Yeah. So get the advantage of flexibility, but get the convenience of having something that is already kind of pre-built for the editor. All right. So that was kind of the combination that we were looking for. Okay.
Gotta throw some fancy stuff.
Oh, fancy stuff.
No. Questions? Any questions at this point? Anybody needs a beer? A break? Maybe? No? You guys good?
So,
Help us out, Nick. Throw us a question.
you guys provide a lot of flexibility to which I think is, for some organizations would be really advantageous. But I know I've worked on some implementations where these things are highly governed.
Yep.
And or have very strict branding requirements. So, I mean, do you find for some people you provide too much flexibility?
That's a great question.
Multi-layered answer.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say is that SCORE gives you this much flexibility. How much of it you use is really up to you.
Yes.
If you had pages within a tenant site that needed more rigidity, they needed to have kind of those branding guidelines followed to the letter, then you can always create page types that are not allowed this much flexibility. Within multi-tenancy, even at the page type level, we're controlling what components are allowed to be injected into what regions based on the page. Right, placeholder setting overrides could be one of the capability, and that's something that we bake into the initial solution for you automatically. But there's also nothing stopping you from if you want to make a layout document that has a grid structure already laid into it and it's got certain components that are literally coded into the layout document, you have that ability. The scaffolding, the archetype that Pavel talked about, gives you control over the layout documents, and if you wanted 10 of them for a tenant site, you still have the ability to do that.
Yeah, that's an important thing as well. So like I said, when we talk about the site, it's not typed in the box. There is no built-in page type in SCORE. There is no built-in layout document. We'll scaffold one for you with 3 placeholders, like header, content, footer. You can change that to be 15 placeholders. You can change it to be very specific template. You can build 5 specific templates for maybe your products or whatnot and keep the content pages flexible. You are, as an architect, mixing the concepts. We give you the ability to go all flexible 100%. You choose what you do based on what you're implementing. Now, when you went flexible, do you still want to control, let's say, what components they can use, what they can't use? The placeholder settings are as well tenant specific. So what we do with the placeholder settings, if I go show you, I'm kind of trying to show you a lot at the same time. But when you scaffold the site using our, again, scripts and templates and whatnot, you're going to get, for each tenant, you're going to get a set of placeholder settings, but they are not global, which apparently not many site developers know, but the technique is actually known and has been blocked about. If you look at, let me find those placeholder settings real quick. Right there. So if you look into the placeholder settings for those SCORE placeholders, each site will have its own section. So you see the Bootstrap UI demo has one. The neighbor site has its own placeholders. You go look into the same placeholder, about page content, which is the header placeholder, right? And as you will see, the key isn't bound to the item. So you can modify what components you allow for that site in that place. The key binding happens in the standard values for the page type. It's a site course. It's a site out of the box thing. It's been there since 2012, so whatever version it's been, I mean, like 7 or maybe even before. So if you go to standard value, let me show you, because I see some places you guys want to see what it is.
You guys ever use placeholder setting overrides?
It's called, yeah, name is placeholder setting overrides, or we call them local placeholder settings. So if you go to the pages, you'll find that the actual content page will say how I want it bound, which means you can easily customize what components you allow. More to that, let me go find it. It's presentation details. So you go in there, and then you go into placeholders, almost. I have to edit, and then you go to placeholders, and then you can define the actual binding of a placeholder key to the placeholder settings item, and the binding now is specific to items created based on these page types. It's a little more elaborate than the global is easy, just put them there and they're there, right? This is a little more work to do, but it allows you to isolate the settings, have it site specific,
More multi-tenant setting.
more than that, have it page type specific. So my SCORE placeholder tab set or whatever tab panel can be on my content page, allow whatever. And on my product page, I don't allow 2 things because I don't want anything else. More work, but you can totally control it through just Sitecore things. Now, but then if even that's not enough, there are placeholder settings rules, which I want to show you one example of, just kind of a silly example, but still.
Well, when you start, if you think about this for a second, when you start nesting components, right? Placeholder settings don't give you enough control over what the user might be allowed to do. Because if I have components and placeholder settings say this component's allowed in this region, then I can kind of do whatever I want. If I wanted to add 10 carousels to a page, I could do that. There's nothing stopping me necessarily in Sitecore. If I wanted to add 50 panels to a carousel, I could do that. If I wanted to add 15 H1s to a page, I could do that. So sometimes we need to have a little more control in the context of a tenant site. And so what we did is we introduced another implementation of the rules engine called placeholder setting rules.
Yeah, so this one is a great example. Let's say, and again, take some discipline. Let's say whatever component that can produce an H1, you group them into document headers section, and then you say, hey, only one component can be placed on the page. Once you place one, if I use this, you'll see that there's no more options. We just remove components from selections available to you in the page editor. Now, we can't help you. We can't disallow doing this on, let's say, device editor. The device editor, unfortunately, couldn't tell us about the placeholder settings. But the page editor, if you use it visually, then completely respects all of this and will apply, will remove the options that we don't want you to use and stuff like this. You can control the number of panels and whatnot, right? Okay, thanks, Nick, for the question.
I imagine you could use security roles as
Like what they're allowed to do based on the role in security, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, you know, we use a lot of the predefined conditions. The cycle comes out of the box for a lot of these things. Whenever the context that we create for our placeholder, for our rule types allow us to have that information, then we do it, all right? And by the way, we also had to test everything that we built. And we didn't talk much about kind of the unit testing and the architecture score. Maybe we'll get to that in a little bit. But
I'll get it in the end.
yeah, let's do it in the end. I was going to say that too. Yeah, let's talk about some snippets.
Mark.
Yeah, one of the things, since the base of everything is really Sitecore itself, so I'm assuming that upgrades as you guys go to 2 are going to be pretty standard. There's not going to be a lot of collisions, or am I wrong on that?
Okay, we're going to go there a little earlier.
we can hold it off if we want to.
No, I like the question. So we have a video that explains this, and I know some of you guys have watched it. We're building and unit testing and running whatever kind of test and all the versions we support. So as you can see, this is our build dashboard with all the things that are happening there, which means we know what's breaking. And sometimes we build a feature, I can tell you what happens. That happened to me the other week. I built a thing commit, and every single unit test except Sitecore 8 update 3 and newer, everything else failed. Because I manually use an API that changed whatever signature of the method changed. So things like this would capture, which helps us help you when you migrate. Now, we ourselves can sometimes break things. Like 2.0 SCORE will have some breaking changes compared to 1.5. We wanted to innovate. We were kind of held back by our own decisions in the past. So we said, you know what, 2.0, it's a kind of major enough release to do some breaking changes, document them as migration steps. What we do, if you want to get to at the end, what we have, it's all online. You can guys Google BrainJocks SCORE documentation. You're going to find this content set, which we are replacing with something better, but right now it's what you're going to find. And it has release notes. And if you go look, for example, something in the past, let's say 1.5 or 1.5, let's say 1.4 came out. You're going to find some like breaking changes, some migration steps, and we have support. Clients just can email us, and whenever upgrade, we actually recommend, hey guys, don't really just attempt it. Just send us an email. We'll sit with you for like an hour, walk you through so you guys don't have to struggle with it, and we'll walk you through the migration steps.
So we do document the changes in the release notes. We also will create a migration path for the clients in case that we have to do that.
But as long as you stay on the same, let's say, SCORE version, let's say SCORE 1.5, if it's available between 7.1 and 8.1 is still working into 2.0. And you're moving from 7.2 to 8, right? The SCORE Sitecore migration is kind of your problem. We can help you as an agency, but it's your problem. If you're staying with the same SCORE, you should not see any different. And there's nothing for you to do based on that. It's only the Sitecore migration. You want to as well up your SCORE version, then you're going to look at the differences between 1.5 and 2.0, and also do some other things as well.
Now we do build and package for each update level and each major minor release.
Let me show
So the SCORE package, even though you're staying at the same version, you would get a package for that particular release of Sitecore, because Sitecore, they change things occasionally. Sometimes they say that, you know,
a little bit,
just a couple times.
Yeah.
So we actually do have to build and package, and our build process takes into account the version, like what Sitecore does, like when they make those changes. So our packaging scheme has to do it as well. So when we version our releases, you can tell exactly what release of Sitecore the package is built for.
Yeah, for developers, it's NuGet distribution with some PowerShell NuGet. So when you pull down the NuGet, if your solution follows the recommended structure, we'll deploy everything you need in your local Sitecore for you. You don't have to do anything, just pull down the NuGet. Then PowerShell runs upon you doing the cell, we'll install it. But then if you look at the NuGets, then you see that the NuGet package ID is unique to each Sitecore version, down to every revision level, because I'm telling you the signature methods sometimes change between different revisions. But then the version of SCORE will be the same. So 1.5.16, for Sitecore 8, this update 3, there is the same version for 7.2 update 4, right? So the SCORE version will be the same because it's the same code base with variances based on what version it's been built for. But the package ID tells you what Sitecore it's built for. Now, you can put the wrong one, and it's going to work as long as you don't hit whatever is different. So it's not going to prevent you from doing so. You can pull SCORE for 7.2 into Sitecore 8 with whatever consequences I have no idea. I've never tried. Why would I do that? But that's a great question. Okay, so shall we do some?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some more challenges in embracing this kind of page editor first mentality. Well, global elements, headers and footers. Now, what is typical in Sitecore builds? If I had to build a global header or a global footer, what would we typically do?
How would you guys build it? Let's look at this site. So look at this site. I'm going through the pages. I have this mega menu that, let's see, look at this one. It has the pull down. This has a kind of different pull down. Does not have the pull down. As I go through pages, the active page shows up, the highlights, the red button, right? But then it's the same on every page.
Yeah, I need that to be on every single page. So how would I do? Give me some options. What can I do? Mark.
If you want to break down the content underneath that menu, you want to look at the structure of how you're going to do that.
So create maybe code or rendering that kind of looks at the content tree and builds the menu programmatically.
Yeah, make sure you're going to source it.
Right, yeah, so that's kind of the typical approach. Right, create some custom rendering, bind it to the layout document, maybe statically, or add it to standard values for those page types, and then it'll have some predefined logic that would kind of build that menu structure by itself. But what about this thing on the right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that going to come from?
That thing. They fly out with the content.
So now it becomes very specific to the design. Right, once again, we don't want that to happen. So when you're building global elements, we want to be able to use the same component approach. Okay, when I build a mega menu, for example, it's got a flyout panel. The flyout panel is a canvas. I should be able to add structure to it. I should be able to add components to it.
But then what about every page?
That's
on every page.
Exactly the problem. So how do I get it on every page? Well, I could literally build this menu out of components on every single page in my website. That might not be the best answer. That could be bad, right? So what else could I do? I could build it on standard values, right? I could build it on standard values, but what would happen if I built it on standard values?
For every page.
For every single page type. It would be, once again, it would be this huge structure at the top of every page. And because of how layout deltas work, each page could modify it, and the menu may not be consistent anymore from page to page.
So we figured, you know what, let's build a new thing that Sitecore didn't have at all. Let's build a feature we call snippets. Let's allow you to create a section of a page separately, right, and then use that section as a unit. So look at this header on the home page, right? It kind of shows as if it's a rendering. It has all the menu options. It almost works. I mean, it doesn't really do much, but it's there. But it's not editable, not unlike the carousel, not what I would expect from a componentized header. But it gives you this nice link. Hey, click me, and you can edit me there. And if I click it, I'm going to kind of go inside of that header section, right? This is a snippet. This is a piece of a page. It has its own header component that has a mega menu container. Now it's a lot more similar than the carousel, built out of mega menu items, which I can use one of the styles available. I can build my own renderings to recommend the existing styles. My content flyout is just a certain type of mega menu item that allows me to create, it's really a placeholder. If I remove this structural, it's going to be just an empty placeholder. I can do whatever as far as my flyout content goes, right? Now I build this menu out of components once as a unit, right? And then what I do, let me go back to the page and show you what I've done to this page when we built it. Let me remove the header, We have all the time, I guess. It's better than doing demo for the client.
It is.
More time, relaxed.
It is. I'm very relaxed.
Okay, so let me delete the header, right? Let me just remove it. So what I will do now, having built it, right? I've built my header as components. Now my editors now have control. They can put whatever content they want. What I can do now, I can use the snippet. It's called a snippet by using a special component called the snippet component. Which, if I use that, it'll tell me what piece of whatever you built before snippet you want to use. I'm going to point it at a header, which is right there. It's my header, right? I'm going to say OK. Then I'll pull it down into this header placeholder on the page as a unit, right? Now I'm dealing with that header as a single component. But it's not built by a developer. It's built by a content editor using component composition. You can build sidebars.
Yes. Now, in this case, we are using a header, which is an obvious example, right? But headers, footers, sidebars, really anything that you need to reuse. If I wanted to build an accordion, if I wanted to build, you might, maybe the power would just kind of flute you.
But I was still connected. So do I need to reconnect?
Yeah, just reconnect that. That's fine.
Huge.
Huh? I was connected.
Okay, good.
Okay, so you guys didn't see that, did you? You were quiet.
Okay.
Did you see the header?
What did you see?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what you guys saw.
Yeah, we saw that.
It's switched after you're done.
Okay, awesome, great. Because now I feel that.
So yeah, it could be a header, it could be a sidebar, it could be a footer, it could be anything. Now, so that addresses the ability to kind of create something and reuse it. And by the way, I could have dropped the snippet in standard values if I wanted to, instead of actually
And we
page.
do a lot of that.
And yeah, we do a lot of that.
Now, and then to propagate it to every page down the side hierarchy, we're using another feature, which I'm not going to talk much about. But if you look at this little button here, right, it allows you to cascade, but it doesn't cascade in visual rendering, it cascade the whole placeholder. We did with sidebars too. So think of this one. We have a header placeholder called header, right? Whatever you put in will cascade down following the side hierarchy. Every other page with the same placeholder in the same place will receive it dynamically. It's not being pushed statically. Nothing's going to be, like by clicking this, I'm not modifying anything other than some piece of metadata. To the runtime users to pull it down when it renders.
Cascading is kind of cool, but it's really cool when you talk about requirements like if the user creates a page that has a sidebar on the right, then it should automatically receive, you know, a form and this, that, and the other, whatever. So this cascade, you can actually cascade different regions, and it'll only receive it.
Do we need to show it?
It'll only receive the cascade if it has a matching location on the screen.
You guys enjoying it? Should I show some?
Or you are bored out of your minds.
Like we're not sure.
You would tell us, right? You would tell us.
Okay, so let's do it. It's going to be like a real live demo, but this site shouldn't produce the outcome. This is a solid thing. We've been using it for a year.
This is still score 1.5.
Yeah, it is. It's not too bad. Yeah, that one is really bleeding edge thing, so it's a little. So let's see. So this is what? This is not. It's not cascaded. So we have a page, right? It has a sidebar in the 2-column large left, right? So I want this sidebar to be on every page. It happens to be a snippet. It doesn't have to be a snippet. I can add anything more to it that I like. Any more components to it that I like. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take the side component, the sidebar, and I'm going to cascade it, right? I'm going to say cascade. You see that it changed? Did you notice that? You guys saw that? The thing, it kind of tells me it's cascaded now. My placeholder, whatever title, has changed. So let me save that so that the metadata saves with the page. Now it's cascaded. Let's go build a child page, because it cascades down, right, to the child pages. I don't think I have any child pages. Do I have any child page? On the contact page? I don't know.
Yeah, it's got all these pages of children.
Are they? I don't know. Anyway, let's build a new page. I don't know.
Yeah, but
Let's build a new page, which will be basic content page. Let me call it something. And there's nothing in there. Why is that? Do you guys know? I just cascaded. It should be there. I wouldn't be showing if it wasn't there, right?
no, the header and footer are there because they were cascaded
From homepage.
from the home page. There is no
There's
sidebar.
no matching structure, right? There's no receiving structure yet. So let's create the same structure, because it's still, like, we haven't templated this out. We have to kind of create these pages one by one, completely flexible. So let's pull down the same structural, which will create a receiving structure for the cascade and it should show up. Right, so it's all dynamic, like I explained, it's all metadata driven. But when you look at the site and they have this, hey, landing section, section 2, and then pages 3, 4 should be the same sidebars. Great example to the feature.
Very true. Now, the other thing about snippets, oh yeah, Nick, sorry.
You like A/B testing snippets?
Awesome.
That's exactly what I was about to say. So a cool thing about snippets and cascades is that they don't just support components and content, they actually also support personalization and multivariate tests. Now, snippets are the interesting piece of this. In a cascade, it's pretty obvious. If I have any personalization in the placeholder that's cascaded, that personalization runs in every page that receives it. And it runs in context of the receiving page, which is a very important thing to understand. The snippets, you can do the same thing. I can define personalization inside of the snippet, and it will execute in context of the page as it receives it. This navigation actually has an example of this already.
So we want to show you that, right? You see this sitting menu item in the middle? So what I want to do, it's like the header is global, as you learned, right? It's snippet based, it's cascade on every page. Now, let's personalize it so that the middle menu doesn't show up for anybody who is not logged into our site.
So I don't want to code this. I don't want to code it. We don't want to program some behavior into the navigation. But because it is built componentized, then we can apply to that one component, we can apply a personalization condition.
So let's do that. Let's find the menu item, which is componentized, so we can easily find that other component. Let's apply personalization condition. We'll create a variance, which we're going to call anonymous, right? And I am going to use a rule that user is anonymous, and all users are anonymous on this side, right? I'm going to use that, and I am going to hide the component. Very simple. So I'm going to save this. Now, I of course need to publish, but I only need to publish this snippet. I'll make a point of only publishing the item. I'm not publishing any pages, just to illustrate that nothing's getting written to the pages without whatever you guys do. Right? The pages are maybe in the workflow, they're approved, whatever. It's really the snippet.
So whatever you edit in the snippet automatically propagates out to all the
It's
receivers.
dynamic. It's all runtime dynamic. You can cache it, but that's a different. We can talk about this, but that's a different thing. Let me publish this snippet. So I'm going to publish, and I'm an admin, so I can do whatever I want, right? I can publish this thing. It should be quick. 1, 2, the language done. And then let's go look at the pages. So it should just disappear. It works. Boom. And it's gone. It's gone from every page. So what happens is every page runs the snippet. Every page runs the same snippet. The same rules run on every page, which means, boom, you're not logged in. You don't have it on every page. It's a global menu that is not personalized by editors. Now, again, you may guys think of a silly example. In whatever project that my team has just delivered, we've used that a lot. Not for that type, but we had components hidden through personalization in navigation that was global. Not because of logged in, not logged in, but because that pull down only makes sense on certain pages. So hide it by default, show it on those 3 pages.
Yeah, the BrainJocks side actually has a functional, what we're doing is we're using personalization in this case as a functional element. Right, we're using it to create some functional behavior.
Which is interesting. We got some interesting questions from some Sitecore. You guys know there are 2, I don't remember the last names, I should. There's a book written by some Sitecore guys about personalization, and they asked us, they actually talked to us about some of the Sitecore 8 features of automated testing when they calculate tests based on personalization, because that thing assumes every personalization is a different experience, which we replied that many teams use personalization as a functional thing. I can use personalization to hide and show elements on my page based on my functional requirements. I'm not changing the experience. It doesn't have to be tested or measured as test. To which they said, So I hope that something will come back as, okay, let's not assume that every personalization is an experience, so we don't have to customize it if we needed to. Yeah. But it's an interesting thought that Sitecore may be looking at any personalization as if it's an experience variance, but you may look at this as a functional characteristic.
So embedding marketing automation within a snippet is one example of how that can run in context of a target page, right? But there's actually
you guys, I know Sitecore 8 multivariate testing does a lot of calculation around statistical significance based on page views. So
I have not looked at that. Great question. There's so many things in Sitecore, especially in Sitecore 8. I have not looked at it. And I have not yet heard, well, I guess we're waiting for a client to come and say, hey, we're going to use this.
I'm waiting for a client to use 80 developers.
So we got turned off again?
Yes.
Yeah, so just to kind of take you out of demo mode for just a second.
Yeah, please.
It's very exciting for all the developers in the room.
If I'm out of demo mode, I'm allowed to.
What kinds of clients, where have you seen this? Obviously, all your clients are happy and elated with the product.
Obviously.
So where are you most excited about what's being done with it outside of the configuration? Where are you seeing a strong matchup between this is such a great application for our product?
Well, it's not going to be surprising. It's not going to surprise you if we say that there is no single site we built with Sitecore that doesn't use it, right? BrainJocks isn't built Sitecore any other way. Even if whatever we build in Sitecore isn't built a content site, we've just delivered a very dynamic. It's an application, 100% behind login. So it's an application really. It's just built on Sitecore because the client needed some content delivery and they had Sitecore license anyway. And even that is using SCORE because beside components framework that has MVC extensions. It's a lot of other things that we're not showing you
We can't demo.
because it's an accelerator beyond the component model.
Now let me tell you about a client who I cannot mention.
You cannot.
I cannot mention. I know I cannot mention. So there's actually two clients, and they're very similar to one another. I can't mention the name of either one of them, but for a second, understand that they have Sitecore, they have enterprise license Sitecore, and they have literally hundreds of sites that they need to produce every year in Sitecore. Not one-page sites, not landing pages, but actual sites that do things like productization, that have products and product variation, et cetera. Not e-commerce sites, because of course they would use active commerce.
They don't sell. They don't do B2C. They just
yeah. So now, shameless plug for Nick. So imagine that what we see and what the most exciting client for BrainJocks SCORE is these customers that want to create these abilities to be able to run these sites very quickly, right? To be able to partner with, if you have several hundred brand sites that you're building in different markets all over the world, you're running with a lot of different agencies, different development teams, but they're sharing instances, they're sharing different landscapes of Sitecore that might be littered all over the world, right? So it needs continuity. You need to make sure that tenants respect one another. They need to have a methodology that works. And on top of that, as much as they can componentize and use a build-first approach, it's going to allow them to execute a lot faster. So when we built SCORE, we built it for extensibility. The components that we have are designed for content, right? They're decidedly generic. Right, they're meant to be generic. But what if you wanted to build things like products and product variation as content?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I want to. Okay. Anyway, I'll go back.
So we want to give an enterprise the ability to introduce their own layer of services, components, requirements, integration points, whatever, on top of SCORE, and to be able to use the same automation that we use and everything else, so that they can very quickly execute and deploy. And allow them to use a build-first approach when they're building these sites and work with different agencies, and they should be able to control the styling, but the content editing experience and the execution should be the same.
So take a look at this one, guys. This is the BrainJocks site. It's the wine store site, right? The one that I didn't really use much in this demo because of the illustrative that I didn't like.
This is running the pre-release version of SCORE 2.0.
It's still fragile, which is understandable, right? So this is a product details page. Let me do a preview to illustrate what it does in preview. It's one of the products of that site, right? This is whatever wine it is, right? Very simple product detail page. Has the wine, has number of variances, 1 bottle, 2 bottles, 12 bottles. You guys, it's very simple. It's not a convert site, it's a catalog of products, right? Now for that client, which is us, number of products is so small, like 35, 40-ish, it's really easy to manage this content. There's no PIM system, there is no 100,000 SKUs. There's just 40 products, each one having 3, 4, 5 areas. It's simple. So the client asked to manage this as content, because that's what they do today anyway. So what we did was said, okay, how about you're going to do you guys want to edit it visually? Because they've tried it before. That's another thing to your question. Many clients who enjoy SCORE have tried it before without, for a year or two. And then they came to us, and then they said, oh my God, that's what we wanted 2 years ago. We just didn't know what it was. We couldn't formulate what we needed. Now we know what we need. Thank you. So if you look at this one, and the product detail page we just built, and this is all, again, it's all Sitecore built-in page editor, just with a nice kind of style. There's no custom field types, none of that. It's just a nice container with a placeholder for variants, adding a product variance, really translates to creating a component that is not macro. This is the product variant, which will add another line with a little more field just inline editing. It's a multi-layered data source system, but that's kind of technicality. But this is the ability to deal with what's the attributes, right? How do I assign my attributes for faceting or search or grouping, whatever. And more to that, even like this is my product details page. It's templated through standard values, but I can still change certain things for this specific product if I want to. But if I don't want anything, it's going to be just the default standard values presentation. But then at the bottom, I also have my product tiles managed, again, componentized. And you will not be surprised if I tell you, which I can show you, if you change the style, and then you run the search, and the search comes back with that result, is going to use this style. We pre-render, index different. So whatever we do to make it fast, it's not relevant. It's not really part of the framework for that matter. It's just a fancy thing we do. But we allow them to completely visually build their product model. There is no content structure to learn. There's no manual to be written, which the guys just, you know, come on, who cannot figure out how to manage the product in this one? Okay, it's simple. Now, not every product is as simple. Not every product catalog is as small. But that's a different application of component model that goes beyond highlights, buttons, and headers that allow you to build products as pages, right?
So products is one example, but you can componentize quite a bit of things in this way. And this thing, by the way, logs. Okay. And this thing, by the way, the product search has faceting, filtering, etc. That's kind of a standard user experience for a client, and this is something that we can very easily capture as a component. I'm going to rearrange this page in whatever shape that I want and move the faceting bar to the right, have it on top, move the search bar somewhere else. And this is where atomic design also comes in. SCORE in the 2.0 release has a new feature that we refer to as CCF, the Component Communication Framework. Yeah. The point of CCF is that components need to be able to talk to one another. A good example of that is the search box, which I'm not, is that what you're playing with? Is that what
almost.
Yachting? So the search box on this thing, when I type into the search, it has to update the grid as a result. But I don't want to have a hard-coded dependency between those components because one of them might not be there.
I wanted to show some interactions, but I guess it's going to be too much to explain. There's a lot of console logging that we do. But yeah, so what you're talking about is this one. So the search box is right on top. Like as I type, what's changing is the actual search results are changing and the facets are changing. Like how many products are based on the search results. If I go into the content editing, and you guys should believe that I can go and find this page, it'll be, you'll see that there are different components. There's a component for the faceting, component for the search bar, component for the search results. Now, so you see this is the search component. There's not a single thing. This is the search component that actually you type, right? And it's going to fire an event. It's going to go after the search results. And then there is a component that responds to search results coming back, which will be this whatever facet.
Or multiple components. In this case, the faceting bar has to update itself based on the results set. The grid has to update itself based on the results set.
Now, the wiring of components isn't something that the editor does in this implementation. Like it's a JavaScript. Like the developer then will go and do something. We're still debating, honestly, how much we want to expose editors for, because it's a borderline technical thing. But the developer, if I show you as a developer how it's built, you'll see the beautiful separation. So this is my component, and what it does, it knows what it does, and then it throws an event to a bus, and that component can subscribe to an event. It knows what to subscribe for. But the two don't know that they really exist on the same page. They don't care. All I do, I throw out an event, and if there's anybody who cares to listen, they'll listen. Right? It's event-based architecture applied to components in the content management system.
So back to that original question, what we're seeing with these enterprise clients is that they'll introduce this layer of services that's something that makes sense to their organization. Right? If they have a lot of consumer goods products like this that they don't want to use an online store, They need to be able to build product as content, so we want to componentize that as much as we can to give it to the editor. And then it becomes a styling exercise to create user experience.
Now, I cannot show the macro.
Well,
I didn't know the whole thing.
No, but the one thing that we didn't finish Nick's question on personalization, because there's one more personalization, one more marketing automation
yes,
feature
yes.
that we support. So what we talked about last time was marketing automation being inside of a snippet. Well, there's another cool feature that we do with snippets that actually is really pretty easy, but it's pretty cool. And we refer to this as macro marketing automation.
So you guys know you can A/B test or personalize on the component level. Inside Create, you can A/B test on the page level with versions. But again, I haven't yet seen anybody do it. I'm sure somebody does, but I haven't come across people do it actively. You still can. But you cannot, let's say, personalize a footer or A/B test the footer as a whole, unless you build it as a rendering. If you build the footer as a rendering, you can replace it with another rendering.
So what we want is we want a footer that's built out of individual pieces.
Or maybe you can data source replace, but that again limits you to having data source represent the two variances of the footer, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the flexibility to build a completely alternative footer.
So we still want the footer to be built out of individual pieces. But I want to be able to take that footer that I've constructed and swap it with a different footer, right? Or swap it with a different sidebar. When the user's logged in personalization, show them a different sidebar.
So let's data source. So we are changing data source on this snippet, right? Now, what's going to happen is this. We have A, which is the footer you guys have seen, and we have B, when it loads. We have B, that is a different footer. Now, I'll wait for that one too.
And by different footer, different.
I'll explain that. So we have footer A, we have footer B, right? Now, they are two different snippets being pulled into the same snippet component area. Now they are individually componentized and they're completely different. Let me show you the footer B. We'll just go in there. I will leave the page. I'm not going to save that. It's okay. So the footer B is a different content structure. And I can tell you that when we did this example, like there's no developer, well, Brian is a developer, but he played the content editor at the time, just built the footer of components, new whatever backgrounds, different structure. That was a 3-column, this is a 4-column, this is there's different composition. Those two footers are different. So you can pull in different snippets into the same snippet component because snippets are basically data sources. But whatever snippet is, I mean, I can A/B test my footer and bring a sidebar. It's going to look ugly, but I can do it. And the sidebar is not a rendering; it's just another composition of components. It's hard to get a head around it if you've got a, but it's awesome. I'm getting tired. Yeah, I need some questions.
Yes, we're gonna go like more to just back and forth questions.
Yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to show you.
Motivation.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. What is it? There's a macro component which we showed. We showed macro component on the that one ShowCon. So the component is right there actually, right here. But the macro, whatever test content, was completely wiped out when I deployed this today on the plane to Milwaukee. So I can build it, but you're going to be bored watching me build it.
Well, you can watch the video later.
We'll build it.
I'm sure we'll make a video
about it. It's a
about
2.0. It's a great feature coming in 2.0. We'll write a video, we'll record it. Now, before I stop, and we go into whatever Q&A, and now if you guys got interested, right? You can go on YouTube and Google BrainJocks SCORE. You'll find this channel. It has this kind of feature overview. Each video is 3 minutes long. It took each one of us about 10 hours to record each. So they're really good.
We're not very good.
No, but they're really good. Okay, they're really good videos. So go watch them. Now, if you really want more, there's a university channel. You cannot find this. It's kind of a private channel. But if you're interested enough to get a trial,
There's a better.
you can get. We'll have a trial, which is normally 30 days. If you need 60 days, just tell, hey, you guys can have a 60 days license. Yes, you can. Here we go. You can contact us. We'll get the whole trial set up with the music feeds and all that. You get access to this guy, which is a lot more kind of for developers, deep dives into different features. You also, well, this is public. You can just go read this. There's a documentation for SCORE, all the reference for all the components, MVC extensions and whatnot, including release notes for all the versions we have out and all the versions coming up, plus the curriculum of our training. We also do training, and if you're not sure if you need it or if you want it, go read the PDFs that outline what happens in the class. There's the handouts for the class. They're all there. They're right now. You can go download. We kind of teach 70% SCORE, 30% Sitecore, because we cannot teach SCORE without teaching Sitecore. We cannot assume everybody has like a good, deep understanding of Sitecore, so we have to teach it. And nobody complained about it not being good. We've taught like what, 10, 15 classes?
Yeah, we've taught quite a few classes in this.
Less than Nick did.
It's a lot of work.
But a lot.
It's a lot more work than we thought it would be.
Oh man.
Thesis classes.
So that's how we recorded the videos and all the material, put it online, so you guys can come educate. Make our job easy. That I'm done.
All right. So guys, you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have any support for forums?
We do have support for forums. First of all, I would point out that Web Form for Marketers works great.
Forums or forums?
Forums, like, yeah, I was going to say, do you guys play well with Web Forms for Marketers? Do you have your own solution?
We do. So we play fine with Web Form for Marketers, and we actually blog quite a bit about it in our consulting practice about making it work and all those good things as well. Now, the other thing that we provide, and this is something that we don't go into the demo, but we have a lot of MVC extensions in SCORE as well. So how many of you guys use MVC areas as an example? Well, you can't until 8.1.
Or if you use something custom. Yeah.
Or if you do something custom, yeah. So SCORE supports MVC areas and has since, whatever. But the other thing is that we have extensions to build forms through MVC by using standard MVC syntax, but allowing you to create editable field labels, editable validation messages, all through Sitecore, but using standard MVC syntax to build your forms.
Like if you build forms from MVC, then you're gonna, it's exactly that. Just you see it like a Sitecore, regular Sitecore, this Sitecore, that, and it allows you to use a field name of a data source item as an error message. So it's editable error messages controlled by authors with you as a developer using MVC syntax to annotate the models for validations. Real nice, real neat, but that's a custom form, like transactional form that you manage yourself.
Mm-hmm.
For WFFM, we don't do anything special, but we blog about it so we can help you kind of solve all kinds of problems that
you might have with that.
But it became better lately, so it's better label than it used to be.
Yep.
So non-organizers who ask questions, I have Sitecore power bricks, but more exciting, I have these awesome red party cups. You might get it at a frat party, but
Red solo cups.
What is that?
and they have Sitecore.
They're cups that are specially designed for beer.
I gotta have.
You gotta have some of those, okay.
Somehow, you see, when they make you an MVP, they don't send you stuff. They have never sent me anything. I don't know why. How do you guys get all this?
They might have sent you something that you.
Maybe I should go to the summit.
Or organize a meetup that gets 20+ people.
Okay,
He's got us on that one.
When? Oh, yeah.
All right, so we got one in the back. Yes, sir.
Can I ask the licensing/support question?
Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, let me show something. Let me just show you something. Let me go here, and I'll do something we've never done before.
Oh God, that's always fun.
What? I'm just going to Zendesk.
Okay.
Why can I not do it?
Oh, on the support?
Yeah, yeah. So we do have, so when you are a SCORE client, or for that matter, if you go for a trial, we'll tell you, hey, any questions you have, send an email to this email address, which is a support email address, and we have it Zendesk. So not only trial the product, trial the services that come with it, because we are offering you, the clients of SCORE, support. And mostly we get questions like, I gotta show you. Can I show you? Like, hey guys, we're building a mega menu. Huh?
You might not want to show client questions.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so
That's a good call, Nick.
but the questions are not like
Forgot about that camera.
not specifically SCORE. They look like, hey guys, you're building a mega menu. What would you do? How would you organize the component structure? And look at these, and these are our designs.
Yeah.
Those consulting questions, we would answer them. We would not really build it for them. we will tell, hey guys, if you want us to build it for you, we can, but it's a different kind of signed contract with an agency, right? But if on the support channel, we'll actually navigate you enough. Like if you understand what you're doing, we'll tell, hey, probably you should be putting this components together, now this components together, use the styling variant, have a CSS class. This is a quick prototype that I can just like pseudocode, not real code, but hey, translate it to real code. We'll help you use SCORE. We know that the training we offer, even the training we offer, 4 days, 3 hours on each day, is not enough. Because SCORE has a lot of things in it. You can't possibly come out of training and say, hey, I know everything, I'm going to go build it.
We can't even cover all the features in the demo. It's just not something.
Plus, license is very simple. It's one cost, one price. Doesn't matter how many servers, how many sites.
How many developer stations, everything.
You can have one site or 50 or 500 running on whatever replicated CD, CM database, wouldn't care. Cloud, not cloud, doesn't matter. One price, you get the SCORE license, 20% support. And the price is?
The price for the SCORE license is $30,000.
Yep.
Okay.
Would that be like if we're a web agency and we have multiple clients?
The client's license. It's tied to
It's tied to the Sitecore license ID.
So let me show you something. Yeah, so if I do this, and I don't have those URLs disabled, so that I can go and say something like, let me.
Your beers are gone.
Huh?
Your beers are gone. It's gonna fall. That's
No, it's okay. So BrainJocks SCORE version. All right.
Yes.
What? It's going to be some version. So now, so what it says is this. It says that it never expires because it's attached to. So if that license expires, if the Sitecore license expires, then that thing expires. But it attaches to a license. Sitecore license. So if you have 5 clients, you'll have to have each license for a client.
Yep.
As an agency, though, you don't have to pay anything. You have to sell your client on it. We can help you if you think you need it. We have agencies. Can we use the names? Big ones? No, move them up. But we have big Sitecore partners using it because they really thought they needed it. They didn't regret because they keep using it and keep building sites with it, and they're licensed to their clients.
Yeah.
They can resell it. We don't have to be exposed. You can resell. I mean, they'll know it's SCORE. They'll have support, but it can. I mean, we don't really. We do not want your implementation business. Right? We do not want it. We do not. Look at Nick. He'll confirm.
He will tell you.
I mean.
No, that is very true. We don't want it. So, and for the partners, by the way, we, our first 2 licensees of SCORE, one was the massive enterprise, the very first ones when we got back from Symposium. And the second was a very, very large partner that then had a team that took SCORE and implemented 60+ websites over the past 10 months with it because they needed that velocity. Right, they need to be able to do that for that enterprise, and that's where SCORE really shines.
Well, we have amazing examples. Like what we built first. I mean, not to brag about it, and those sites were not like uniquely designed, whatever. They didn't have enough, didn't have integration. Let's say content sites, get it out. You have it designed, get it out. 3 days, it's out. Because you build components, so what you do is essentially have a CSS developer styling components compositions while a non-developer, non-CSS guy, we call them project specialists, create pages. Right? Just create pages, assemble components, styling comes over it, you're done, you can launch it. You can build simple sites really fast, you can build complex sites without worrying about your content structures. With the complex sites, you really build integrations, CRM integrations, PIM integrations, whatever downstream integrations, upstream integrations. Your content part becomes easy because it's all done. It's all componentized. You use the built-in components, you build custom components with built-in zone kind of fit. We have a ratio. We try to tell you, hey guys, if you're building 50 custom components, you're doing something wrong. If you build 15 of them, it's okay. I mean, I can get it without even looking at your site, right? I can tell you 15 is fine, 50 probably not. Show me what you guys doing, unless those 50 are transactional components. So we can teach you how to compose things, how to style them, so you don't have to worry about them. We can tell you how to cache it properly, so you don't have to worry about any kind of overhead of nesting and more renderings. So yeah. Oh yeah, that's lovely.
You guys find it out.
You guys work well with TDS, right?
Love TDS. So our scaffolding archetype, right? One of the things that we do is our scaffolding creates 3 TDS projects or tenant site. One attached to core, 2 attached to master. One master for templates, renderings, all those kinds of things. The other one for content that the developers might need to actually execute in the development team. Which is another thing that we blog about quite a bit is kind of our solution architecture.
It's even in our training, I believe. It's got to be somewhere. I have to find it. I mean, I'm sure it's in here. It's more it is.
But that the solution archetype does. We've actually talked a little bit about even creating other archetypes for the solution in case somebody wanted to use Unicorn or something else. That they should be able to do that as well. All right, but we do like TDS internally. We use it. It's a big part of our automation story as well. So we're fans, definitely fans.
No, there it is.
Okay. In the back, yes, sir.
So this is kind of a follow-up to the licensing cost. If your license is tied to the Sitecore license,
yeah,
how do you handle development?
So it depends. The development team might actually use the client license, but for partners, like when a partner comes, a Sitecore technology partner comes, we will give you a license key for your Sitecore partner license ID as well.
Because you probably develop on your partner license internally, right? Yeah, well, just because the thing is, you're not going to launch a client side on your license anyway. So you've got to have a real license for the client to run the production system. So we're going to give you your license for, and then if your license expires every year, you'll as you go into, so Sitecore has a Sitecore partner site. You just go and do it self-service with us. You send us an email, to SCORE support, and we just send your license back. We haven't yet matured to build a portal for you guys to go and build and get a license. We spend our time on documentation and the videos and that things, not the licensing portals. You can just send us an email.
Now, for the partners, for those that actually send their developers through our training program, we also say you can use the license to SCORE on your site as well. So that for no charge, obviously.
Sure.
Okay. Yes.
For a partner, would you recommend still, for trial purposes, still request that initial trial, or just go ahead and say, hey, can we get a development license?
Well, so you see, how do I say this?
I don't know. What are you going to say?
Yeah. Well, I would actually recommend just come talk with asking for a license for a trial is, I mean, it's no big deal. There is no sales, but like, we're a small development-oriented company. Like, there's nobody who will knock on your door and kind of persuade you to buy. Just contact us, so whatever contact form you can have, right? We'll send you this. There's a standard email about how you.
There's a form on the BrainJocks.com website where you can request a trial, and essentially it's a very simple thing. We send you a trial license that lasts like 30 days or whatever.
That was not enough.
And then we can extend it. But there's also videos that we provide how to get started. There's 2 videos. One on how to set up your Visual Studio solution. Another one, how to work inside of Sitecore using SCORE, and then you're kind of at that point. And a lot of customers, what they'll do is that once they've done that, they'll call us up and say, hey, can I have a demo site? Can I play with your demo site? And by request, in some cases, we'll do that. So not really a reference implementation, but we will share.
Yeah, there's 2 demo sites we'll send you. One of them is kind of a little old, so not necessarily pretty, but it's okay. We'll send you that one, and the BrainJocks is a lot better. We're not sending that one yet because it's not ready. Well, not ready because the SCORE 2.0 is ready. When it will be ready, we actually wanted it to be a reference implementation, so we can tell, hey, not only is this a demo site, it's also built right. So whatever patterns you see in that site, we believe are the right things to do, so use that. So the first demo site evolved with SCORE like 2 years. We reskinned it a couple times, we built it a couple times internally. Not exactly perfect inside, whatever. But we even that, we're still going to send it to you.
Okay. Yes.
I see that it's like really easy to start from scratch and implement this, like on new sites that are start building. But if you already have some kind of legacy site that should be designed in good component way, how hard is it? It's like probably have some examples because we actually right now looking for some kind of approach for componentizing all site.
So short answer, okay. We talked about this a little bit earlier, is that the components are assigned the templates by the page type. If I have an existing site and maybe I have 15 or 20 page types that I've already built that are templated, right? They're not componentized. But I need to add another page type into it. You can add another page type into that existing site as a SCORE-based template, and then use SCORE on that page type, and then page type by page type, you can begin to convert that over. So you don't have to do it all at once. And that's kind of the short answer, but we get through that quite often, where a company will come to us and they say, hey, we kind of did it this way, and we want to move over to this way, but we don't want to rebuild the site all at once. How do we do that? So the answer would be to go page type by page type and allow them to kind of migrate over organically.
But also remember that SCORE is 100% MVC. If a legacy site is likely a web form site, you'll have to start building new pages on MVC. And even though there are solutions that mix two on the same page, I would not recommend you use it. So do it like page isolated MVC pages versus web forms pages.
Now when you have those data templates and they're separate by the page type, you can have MVC and non-MVC in the same site, just not in the same page. So as long as you're segmented by page, then you're okay.
That said, though, I would still say that it's a lot cleaner to just build it either parallel or something new. So this approach that we explained absolutely makes sense. It's right. We just haven't seen it done many times.
Well, we've done it. We haven't seen
it.
clients do it that much, but we've done it. Yeah. Good question. Okay. Anything else, guys? Yes.
You just touched really briefly on your test suite. I mean, it seems like
ooh,
so many permutations.
Yes.
So good.
Okay.
Good question. Pavel's just got excited about that.
Yeah. So what we're using is Sitecore Fake DB for all the unit testing we do. We do so because we are one of the contributors. So BrainJocks allows me personally to contribute as I work on whatever I work on to Fake DB. So if you guys have seen presentation on Fake DB during ShookCon or any other conference, Dan Sullivan is a big fan of unit testing. He does a lot of this. So all unit tests for Sitecore are with Fake DB. This is the unit test you see right there, whatever 900 unit tests. Now, we are working on a special test suite for the page editor Selenium-driven tests, so that we can have regressions for specifically the page editor. Like testing the actual sites, it has been done before for like years. But the page editor, so it's not even anywhere. Like it's going to be on GitHub, it's going to be open source. I'm not going to hide it. It's really just a framework. It's just not yet even ready to be the initial commit to the GitHub, but we have a prototype that is really cool. Allows you to have, if you think of as a developer an API, you can say, hey, like when I add component Y to placeholder Z, then expect, so you can speak Sitecore lingo. And behind the scenes, the Selenium automation for your page editor things hasn't yet been even out. I mean, you can't use it yet. I can't even talk about it, but it's going to be, as soon as I have some time, which I hope I will. Not at all.
So FakeDB is really good.
The primary.
It is, and the things that you can test inside of FakeDB is, building your own pipeline processors, event handlers, creating your own rules and conditions, your own rule types. You really have a lot of flexibility in the things that you can test in FakeDB, and we invested pretty heavily in it. We're really happy with the result, but yeah, at some point we're going to have to automate the integration tests as well, and that's kind of the next step.
But it's mainly unit testing.
Okay. Anything else? Good. All right, guys, we're going to eat some pizza.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Couple closing words. Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen.
I could have been holding for an hour.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Pavel. And thank you guys too for what you guys do for the community with FakeDB and the knowledge you're willing to share with others like Active Commerce about how to test against a million versions of Sitecore. And again, thanks to you all for making this user group great. It's been a great year for us, and we look forward to 2016. Like Derek said, we're going to take off for the holidays here. Hopefully come back in January strong with a presentation on Speak.
Speak 2.0?
I don't know. Mark?
We'll do a little both, and we, right now, mainly,
I agree with what you said. I don't, well, it's off the record, is it? Is it not?
We're still broadcasting.
Okay.
Off the record, we'll be at the L House after we clean up here.
I have something on say off the record.
If you guys wouldn't mind helping clean up on your way out, there's recyclable and garbage and all that. And thank you again. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.